Another technique, do not phrase a question in terms of the juror's ability to do something, but whether they will do it. It's a nuance. So the question is, can you be fair? That's the ability question, sure. So people think they were more likely to say they have an ability than they are going to say that they will actually do it. So you say, don't ask, can you be fair? Because they will almost always say, I'll try my best, which is a black hole of questioning, right? We all got there. What do you mean, try your best, blah, blah, blah. Try asking, will you be fair? So that's asking the juror the right question. Not can you be in the abstract, because that's like a problem. No problems. Yes, I can be fair. Will you be fair? Will you be fair in a case involving a 9-year-old? Will you be fair in a case involving 27 kids? So again, really word choice is super important. Challenging someone's ability to do something is harder than challenging their own confidence that they will succeed in it. You're working on that juror's self-doubt, and it's that self-doubt which is the first cousin of the impairment. Nobody has problems, but everyone has genuine concerns. Everyone has the ability, but not everyone can succeed. So, get rid of problems, talk about concerns. Don't talk about whether someone's got the ability to do something. Get to whether they will actually do it. Validate impairment. My wife feels that way. I don't even have a wife, and I say that all the time. I used to have a wife. We all want to be fair, but sometimes if we're completely honest with ourselves, we have to admit that we just can't be fair on certain issues, but hit a personal nerve at us. So these are just phrases that I use to validate people who are telling me they're got an impairment. People tell me that all the time at cocktail parties. That opinion is quite common. You're not the only screwball in here. Everybody feels that way. That's a very natural feeling, and lots of people agree. These are platitudes, okay? So you're giving these platitudes so that they feel good about really bearing down and giving you that impairment. Again, insulating them with thanks. Thank you for being so honest about your firmly held beliefs. See, you're telling them they have a firmly held belief. Maybe they didn't even tell you that. You're saying, thank you for being honest about your firmly held belief. Well, judge, it's a firmly held belief. Part of our colloquy. Yeah. So these are just examples that I pull out of my practice of this validation thing. The signing up, these, again, just word groupings to do that. Who here agrees with what Mr. Jones has so honestly stated? By a show of hands, who else agrees? Ms. Smith, you agree with what Mr. Jones has said, don't you? That means Ms. Smith has either already given me an impairment or she's on the verge of giving me an impairment, and I'm using Mr. Jones, or whoever it is here, Mr. Jones, to break her through the ice. I do a lot of that where I'm joining Miss Thomas. You touched on this in your answer. I bet you don't agree with that, do you? So someone has said something, and I know that Miss Thomas has said something in her questionnaire, so I'm keying her impairment that she's told me to something that's happening now with the juror. Yeah. So once you've got this, once you've done all the hard work of writing the questions and getting this impairment, you have to make the right record. And making the right record means you've asked a proper kill question. You've conditioned your judge. This is what I'm doing here. I am getting rid of people who you must get rid of because they have legal impairments, a biased state of mind that's on an issue that's directly related to this case. You must make the appropriate record to the court. And this is where a second professional is really important because I use a scoring method. You're going to have someone else writing down the answers or the head nods and so forth. Conditioning. Cause-based conditioning is the effect of talking about all of these bummers, all of these potential impairments or actual impairments in the case. It will condition, I call it negative conditioning. You're conditioning the juror to the negative issues. Positive conditioning is a different technique. It's really kind of outside the scope of this lecture, but I do want to touch on it because you can use both. They're not mutually exclusive. I would tell you, go to the bummer, get rid of all your bad jurors, and if you've got an extra 20 minutes, focus on some other things. But this can be done through rapid-fire bias statements, repeating statements out loud, hybrid conditioning, which is a slide and a discussion. And these will have a conditioning effect to foreshadow the remaining jurors to the good facts. I call that positive conditioning. So an example of passive conditioning, rapid-fire statements would be, by a show of hands, people charged with this crime are more likely to have committed it than in other crimes. And you'll get 3 or 4 people to raise their hand. People who are innocent almost never go to trial. 2 or 3 people will raise their hand. So you're really not trying to engage the juror here. You're making these statements of bias and see who might be buying into it. In a case like this, it's more likely that the defendant is guilty than in other types of cases. If the defense doesn't prove their case, we have to convict. These are all impairments, and you're reading them to them and just saying who agrees. Use of specific rhetorical questions not designed for discussion. That's what you're doing. You're just making the statements. Do you believe that sometimes parents influence their children in ways that they're not aware of? Okay, I don't care what the answer to that question is, because I'm telling the jurors, in this case, the parents influenced their child in a way they didn't fully understand. Maybe they didn't even intend to. I'm conditioning them for that. And so I've just asked that question over and over. Do you believe that? Do you believe that? And it turns out most jurors or potential jurors will tell you, yeah, I think parents may sometimes affect their kids in ways they don't understand or intend. Do you think that teens sometimes fabricate events to please others, to gain attention, or to receive sympathy from age peers, right? Theory of the case. Do you think that adults can misunderstand or misinterpret past events that are being considered when they are upset or emotionally distraught? Again, this is going to your theory of defense. You're just conditioning them by asking a thinly veiled rhetorical question. The use of slides. I do this every now and then where I'll put up a slide and then just let the slide keep testifying while you're talking about other things. So you could be talking about whatever. I'm up here going blah, 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 right? And if the juror's not listening or doesn't want to listen, they're going to start staring at my chart. Okay? And that's going to have an effect. If they're not listening to you, they might as well be looking at something. And it might as well be something that helps you. This can be dangerous because it can split attention. And I'm not real big on slide presentations and PowerPoints and voir dire because you can have a divided attention thing going on, which can be very dangerous. I know a lot of practitioners talk about that on closing, when and how to effectively use visual prompts. But it is a technique where you're putting up a slide to have just sort of a ongoing message coming out. This is one I like, especially in really bad cases. You have the juror actually say things to you. Mr. Decker, I have no hesitation in my own mind that I can be fair to a person charged with sexual assault on 21 children. Say it to me, right? And you'd be surprised. A juror who really doesn't believe that, it will be obvious. They'll either say, I can't say that, I won't say that, or they'll say it in a way that everybody in the room knows they don't mean it. But it's a good technique. Ms. Smith, will you repeat? I will find your client not guilty if the prosecution does not resolve all my reasonable doubts. Have them literally say it. And having a juror say something like that is going to condition them, or it's going to create intellectual dissonance that will come through.